All right, Tampa Bay Lightning, Toronto Maple Leafs, rematch of last year's first round. Let's get into this preview. I feel like this is easily the toughest series to predict out of all of the series in the playoffs right now. It is just foggy. I mean, you look at paper, the stats, I don't see how you don't go Toronto. If you lined up, if I brought in 10 people right now who don't watch hockey and are just like, here's the stats, who are you going to pick? They're all picking Toronto. There's no chance, looking at the numbers, that anyone is going to pick Tampa in this series. But that's not how this works. This is playoff hockey, and especially with these two teams that we're talking about, Tampa and Toronto. Tampa, they've made it to the final the last 3 years. They just always find a way to get to the next round, no matter how many games they need. If it's a sweep and Vasi just dominates, then that's how they'll do it. But if they need to grind it out, block a bunch of shots, win games 2-1, 1-0, 3-2, they can do that. And if they need to win games 6-4, they can do that. They somehow have always found a way the last 3 years. And then you look at Toronto, totally different story. They always find a way to shoot themselves. Literally every time they make the playoffs, they find a new way. And Toronto gets a lot of hate. I honestly feel bad for their fan base because last year, talent-wise, I think they have a better team than we did, but we made it to the finals. And that has to be tough as a fan base, and especially with how big of a franchise they are. I know they get a bunch of hate. But just going back and looking at the last 10 games and seeing where the teams are going into the playoffs, again, Toronto on fire going into the playoffs. The Lightning, they've looked how they looked the last couple months. Not great at all. Like an average hockey team, basically. So the last 10 games, Toronto is 7-1-2, and Tampa is 4-6. So they're below 500 the last 10 games going to the playoffs. And like I said, this is how they've looked this season, especially in that second half of the year. It's been pretty rough. The guys that you look to be those point leaders are there. Kucherov has 113 points. Braden Point got his first 50-goal season. Stamkos started off strong, started to tail out a little bit towards the end, but he still had a really good season, 84 points. But it has just been sloppy and careless a lot of the time, especially on the back lines. I remember there was a good chunk of games in a row where they would just give up fast break after fast break, just handing them out like they're Girl Scout cookies. And it was hard to watch as a fan, and I about lost my mind. It started to tighten up a little bit, and then it gets loosened up again, and I'm just like, how are they going to put this together when it comes playoff time? Because, you know, everyone around, at least the Tampa community, says, oh, they can turn it on when it comes playoff time. They can turn it on when it comes playoff time. And they've had stretches in past years where they've looked bad, but not a whole second half of the season. After the All-Star break until now, they have been a little bit above 500 team. It's not been good. And while I still do believe that too, because I've been proven wrong, and they show you every single playoff series that they know how to turn it on when the time needs to happen, whether it's a must-win Game 6, Game 7, or if it's like where we are right now, where they're playing bad going into the playoffs and they have to turn it on Game 1. We'll see how they come out. On the other hand, Toronto, like I said, they're hot. Marner didn't hit that 100-point mark. Somehow they should have played him so he can get that 100 points, but understand, health is more important than getting that 100-point mark. Nylander also had a really good season, second most points on the team with 87, and then Austin Matthews with a down year. I don't know why people are saying he had a down year. He still scored 40 goals, 85 points. That man he's a beast. If that's his down year, then that's a compliment, honestly. Then going into the goalie matchup, you have Vasilevsky, known, been there, done that. We all know about it. Samsonov or Matt Murray, most likely Samsonov. You look at them during the regular season, Vasilevsky, just like how I said with Austin Matthews, a down year. If that's your down year, then you're a pretty good player. And then Samsonov, who had a pretty solid year. Samsonov had a better save percentage than Vasilevsky this year. Obviously, Vasilevsky has more wins and all of that, but Samsonov has looked good. And Toronto's defensive pairings have also looked good. That's what they always talk about when it comes to Toronto in playoff time is their defense and their goaltending can keep up with teams like the Lightning. It's been pretty good this year. So where the doubt really comes from Toronto fans or fans around the league, I don't really see it. Vasilevsky, I'm not worried about him. I know a lot of people are, but why? If there is any goalie in the league that will be able to turn it on when the time comes, when it needs to happen, it's the Big Cat. And players around the league know that, and the players on his team know that. When they need Vasilevsky to show up, he'll show up. And going back to when I was talking about how Toronto had better stats than Tampa, especially down the major categories: power play, Toronto; penalty kill, Toronto; goals for, the Lightning by 0.02, and goals against, Toronto by a good margin. Like I said, if this was on paper, Toronto all day. But that's when you have to question, how much does experience come into play? Last year, came into play a bunch, in my opinion. This year, I feel like it has to do the same. Playoff experience will be huge in this series, with Tampa knowing how to do it and Toronto continuing to fail. But it has to happen at some point for Toronto. Toronto is not just going to keep losing first round forever. Like, they have to break the curse. Curses are meant to be broken. It's going to happen. Will it happen this year? It's really foggy. I cannot tell. I'm going to very cautiously take Tampa winning in Game 7 in Toronto, just like they did last year. I think Vasilevsky shows up this series. I think, like I said, they know how to turn it on when it needs to happen. I think a lot of people are down on the Lightning, looking at power rankings and things of that sort. A lot of people are down on the Lightning. And if they weren't the Lightning, and you just put, let's say you threw, let's say the Devils. Let's say you gave the Devils the Lightning's numbers, and you put them up against Toronto, like statistical numbers, put them up against Toronto. Toronto will be heavily favored to win that series. But looking at polls and things like that, it's pretty close. Like, it's maybe 60-40 Toronto right now. So I'm going to take the Lightning in 7. I think they can turn it on, and they'll be able to win that Game 7 in Toronto just like they did last year. They're going to need guys like Nick Paul and Anthony Cirelli and Ross Colton. They're going to need that fourth line to do what they do and toughen the game up a little bit. Pat Maroon be the agitator. And hopefully Tanner Jeannot can make his way back in this series. He has just been upgraded from week to week to day to day. Perfect timing, I know, right? And he could play a big part in this series. I think while he doesn't have much playoff experience, if he even has any with the Predators last year, he has that playoff type, that playoff build. He'll fight, he'll bump you, he'll get down and get dirty. So hopefully Tanner Jeannot can come back. It was a hell of a series last year, and these teams just played not too long ago, and that game was pretty insane. Bunch of fights, bunch of pushing and shoving after the whistle. It's going to be a fun series, and I cannot wait for this series to start tomorrow. So let me guys know who you guys are taking in the comments. Thank you guys for watching. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. And sorry about my nasally voice. I'm sick come playoff time. Like, come on, man. Why do I have to get sick right when it comes to playoff time? Nobody wants that. I want to go out, have fun, go to some watch parties, but I'll be here.